Hello viewers, I'm Bakar Bhatti, CEO PAS. In this video, I'm going to explain who has to file T2 corporation income tax return under the Canadian tax laws. This video is only for educational purposes. However, if you need any specific advice on tax and accounting matters, you can always contact us on the numbers shown in the screen. Now, the first question relates to the residency status of a corporation. So, under the tax laws, all resident corporations have to file their tax return, and any non-resident corporation doesn't have to file their tax return, but there are exceptions to this rule. Now, what is the definition of a resident corporation? Generally speaking, the Income Tax Act does not provide a clear definition of who is a resident corporation under the Canadian tax laws. But there are several provisions under the income tax law and of course the common law principles that are used to determine the residency status of a corporation. Broadly speaking, a corporation that is incorporated in Canada and whose control is exercised in Canada is considered to be a resident corporation. And by analogy, any corporation that was incorporated abroad and whose major control is not exercised from Canada will be considered a non-resident corporation for tax purposes. But there are detailed rules to see individual cases whether a corporation would qualify to be a resident corporation or a non-resident corporation. Now, in the case of a resident corporation, there is a requirement under the law that every resident corporation in Canada has to file their T2 corporation income tax return. And these resident corporations may include business corporations, non-profit organizations, tax-exempt corporations, as well as inactive corporations. Now, this last point, inactive corporation, is important to note because generally there is a wrong perception on the part of certain people that once they get their business incorporated, particularly Canadian controlled private corporation, then they do not start any business, there's no active business activity going on, and then they assume that probably they don't have to file the T2 corporation tax return because their corporation did not carry on any business in Canada. But when we look at the relevant provisions of tax laws, it categorically states that every resident corporation, regardless of the fact whether it was an active corporation or an inactive corporation, must file their T2 tax returns. Now, there are a few exceptions to it. In the case of tax-exempt crown corporations, also called state-owned enterprises in economic terms, they don't have to file tax returns. And then, if a corporation that was registered as a charity and it remained a charity throughout the year, this is the other exception where the corporation doesn't have to file the T2 corporation income tax return. Now, in case of non-resident corporations, there are certain situations where even a non-resident corporation has to file T2 corporation income tax return under the Canadian tax laws. But there are certain conditions or situations that must apply. So, if your corporation is a non-resident corporation, but any one of the following situation applies in your case, then you are required to file a T2 corporation income tax return. What those situations are? Your organization, that is non-resident organization, carried on business in Canada, or it had taxable gain, or it disposed of taxable Canadian property. So in these three situations, even if the corporation is a non-resident corporation, it must file its T2 corporation income tax return. Now, there are elaborate rules for non-resident corporations, the situations where they have to file tax returns in additional cases, and of course other detailed provisions regarding the currency they have to show in their tax return, etc. But they are beyond the scope of this video. I hope you enjoyed the contents of this video. If you need any specific advice on tax and accounting matters, you can always send us an email at pascat2017@gmail.com, or else you can call us at 289-952-3494. Or you would like to visit our website at pascat.com. Thank you for watching the video.